The Revolution Podcast, episode 30, feedback for The Love Boat.
Hi, you're listening to Revolution Podcast. This is Maria Howell as Grace on Revolution.
Golden Spiral Media presents The Revolution Podcast. Support for The Revolution Podcast is provided by listeners like you and Think Geek. Charm the geeks in your life by giving them geeky goods from Think Geek. Think Geek has fun stuff for every Trekkie, Jedi, Whovian, Browncoat, Cortexiphan, and so much more. Bacon. Visit goldenspiralmedia.com/Think Geek today. I'm hungry.
Bacon.
I could either go for some bacon or some unicorn meat.
Or unicorn meat wrapped in bacon.
Oh, man, that sounds delicious. You can get all of that stuff over at ThinkGeek.com. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Daryl?
I'm doing well, too. Thank you for
right.
using my name. I used your name.
Yeah.
Now we are introduced via each other.
All right. Awesome.
Yes. little abnormal introduction tonight. So anyway, good to be back with you podcasting about Revolution.
Viva la.
Yes. Good episode. Lots of good feedback this week. We have some feedback that came in about last week's episode and some good theories on who Monroe's son might be.
All right.
If we've already seen him, that is.
Look forward to hearing those.
Yeah. We have some really good stuff. Let's get it kicked underway. Kicked underway? That's not even a phrase. Kicked off? Let's get it underway. Either one of those would have worked. But instead, I chose kicked underway.
Yeah.
And that didn't work.
Yeah. Are you ready for some football?
Let's get it kicked underway. And it's coming and it's here. We're going to get it kicked off tonight with Sean.
Hello, this is Sean again, calling from Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. I'm calling to leave feedback for the Revolution Podcast. To touch on last week's episode of the night the lights went out in Georgia, I have just two thoughts. One, Jeremy, you mentioned steam power. Well, when Georgia and Monroe Republic were at war, Georgia may not have had steam power at that time. Therefore, Monroe wouldn't even know about it, or at least know of its development and its functionality in the post-electric world. Number two, Maggie's kids, a character that we haven't heard for a while. Maggie's kids, if I remember correctly, they were in England, and since Georgia has communication with England, I wonder if they're going to come into play. Now, onto this week's episode, home. I have quite a few thoughts. The first one, I still don't trust Rachel at all, and I think she's using Aaron to possibly program the tower and the nanites, and not necessarily to turn the power back on. Simply, she just cannot be trusted. Another one with Miles. I know it's been really repetitive, seeing the same Miles story over and over again. Women problems, more or less. I think Emma was the start of that, and by her dying, might be some sort of closure for Miles, and we'll see how it plays out, but that's my thought. Monroe's son, really appreciate it. I really like the twist. I think we already met Monroe's son. I think he is the messenger who met face-to-face with Miles and passed on the message to Miles when they were all in the tent. I'm pretty sure that character is still alive, and I'm pretty sure he didn't get any screen time after that. But, yeah, I think that's Monroe's son. So I'm just wondering if his son actually knows who his father is. Another one, Porcella, Aaron's wife. I think we definitely will see her again eventually when we get to Texas. And I think her so-called family may be one of the head families in the Texas Federation, more or less the president, and she is the first lady. And the last thought, Neville, I don't trust him at all. I think his mindset's still set on Miles and getting revenge for what he did in Philadelphia to his wife. And I think his plan overall is to take out Randall first before he moves forward with Miles and Monroe, is to take out Randall as some sort of hidden agenda that we are yet to see. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Again, this is Sean calling from the Monroe Republic. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Good stuff, Sean.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start with this one?
Well, we can kind of touch on Georgia, the night the lights went out in Georgia, that episode. He mentions the steam power and how they may not have had steam power while at war. And while that is definitely a fair statement,
Sure.
I think they would have obtained it later. And actually, in this week's episode, we apparently got a bit of an answer to that with the other boat.
Monroe definitely had a steam boat, the police boat.
Yeah.
Those guys were punks, weren't they?
Yes.
Were they steampunks?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's interesting though. Did they steal that boat from
Right.
Georgia? And just. Hey,
But
let's
if they
take their
stole the
or-
boat, why couldn't they steal other?
Yeah, it still
things.
is definitely a mystery as to why Monroe doesn't have more steam-powered
Right.
stuff.
And now that may just have been an oversight with the writers and the directors at one point. So we might see more steam in the Monroe Republic, but
Okay, that's true. Maybe.
with the whole train and the steam power being a novelty at one point in
Yeah.
the series, I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
So
He talked about Maggie's kids being from England as
Yeah.
well. I think we're done with that storyline, to be honest with you. As cool as it would be, I mean, a season from now, are we going to care at all about Maggie or anything that might tie into her since she's a dead character? I don't think so. I liked her as a character. I didn't want her to die. I don't mean to be
Yeah.
cold. I just think that she's going to be so far removed from the story.
we've forgotten about her, essentially, yeah.
But you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing them, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we will. So
All right, what about his theory about Monroe's son? I thought that was interesting.
okay, being the messenger
Yeah.
to Miles in the tent. Which tent?
What I'm understanding is, last week when they were told that they needed to meet Monroe at this town, there was a messenger that he says, forgive me, I'm just quoting directly from Monroe. Remember which guy I'm talking about?
You're right.
They didn't kill him that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
So he's throwing out the theory that could be Monroe's son.
Okay. Okay.
It's a good theory. I mean, you can't say yay or nay at this point.
Yeah.
It's as good as any other person of the appropriate age that you could throw out there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense, but at the same time, I don't know if there's any evidence leading us in that direction.
Right.
Other than his age. So.
Yep.
But it would be kind of cool that he's been working for his dad and his dad didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's
It
kinda
would
like
be. And if he was sent from that town, maybe he was a local militia member.
Right.
We just don't know. We don't know. I do
Right.
think it is a possibility, and it's as good of a possibility as anything else we have at this point.
Yep, indeed.
All right. Anything else that he touched on there that you want to comment on?
Aaron's wife, Priscilla, marrying richly. I think that's kind of an interesting thought. I don't know if we're going to see that, but we've kind of mentioned if we thought we would see her again, and I think the consensus is no. But yeah, I think if she is an important figure, I think that would be kind of neat. At the same time, I don't know if she's the president's wife, why she would be traveling alone, getting captured by a bounty hunter.
Yeah, and why the Texas wouldn't be sending out all the troops to go rescue her.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it would be cool to work her way back into the storyline.
Yeah.
If she is someone of prominence, that I could definitely see them happening to cross paths again. But if she's just a common person, I don't.
Right.
I think it's too far-fetched that they would happen to cross paths again. So I'm
So-
going to stick with what I said last week, and we're done with her.
She could be in Dr. Warren's journal, though.
Possible.
So, who knows?
That's true. I didn't
Aaron
think
was
about
in
that.
there.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next feedbacker. This one comes in from Yo-Yo.
Hey guys, it's Yo-Yo in Kansas City. I just got done listening to the feedback for Revolution podcast episodes of Home, and you guys were talking about the Twitter feed. I was just kind of thinking of older kids that we have seen so far in the series and whether that could be Monroe's son. The Children's Crusade. The older brother in the Children's Crusade, the one that they were trying to save from being implemented into the militia, how old was he? Was he old enough? I'm kind of curious on if that possibly could be Monroe's son. I don't remember if we got any clues on his origins or not, so I may have to go back this weekend and take a look. But anyway, that's the only other older kid I can think of that we have had any intimate contact with was from that episode. Anyway, thank you again for the podcast. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right, another theory here. What do you think of this one?
Another good theory. I think that this particular kid, though, he appeared to be a little bit more of a kid. I think his son would, we kind of estimated he'd be around 20.
Yeah.
But he could be probably anywhere between 18 and 20.
Yeah, I think that kid was on the younger side. We're talking about the one that was actually captured by Monroe and on the...
Right.
I was going to say, yeah, it was a boat, I guess it was. I think it's possible. I think he could possibly fit into the right age range.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking he was closer to 16 in age, which I think he would need to be older than that, but maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It's not outside of the realm of possibility, although I'd put it on the edge,
I think that if he was that young, then we wouldn't have needed the casting for Miles and Monroe for their younger selves.
Yeah.
Because we've already seen them right before the blackout. So, there had to have been a few years between those 2 points.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeremy. But again, another good theory. I like it because, you and I couldn't really come up with anyone outside of really Jason, which we didn't like, and Danny, which we didn't like. And here's two people, that have been brought up back to back here. So this is why we love, the audience participation, because you guys always have better ideas than we do. So we'll see. It could be neither of those, but at least we're getting some ideas thrown out there. So thank you, Yo-Yo, for sending that in. All right, let's move on to the next feedbacker, which is Bonita.
Hey, this is Bonita Atlanta. I am calling for the Revolution podcast. Feedback on the Love Boat. I want to issue a big complaint on the shootout scene, or the scene with Rachel and Aaron in the truck. She shoots through the door, not knowing she's going to hit anybody. All of her bullets. And the guys don't think they can shoot their bullets back through the door at her and basically strafe the whole entire vehicle, or it just made no sense. And I was yelling at the TV, and it so took me out of the moment, and I so wanted something better to happen there. I was hoping that they had some kind of an ambush plan, that they weren't actually even inside of it, that they made something fall or over somehow, and that they were going to shoot them from behind, something that made more sense than the way it went down. Big complaint about the episode right there. Rest of it, I liked the way it ended. I'm glad that we're getting to the tower before the end of the season. I hope that they don't give us too much of a cliffhanger going into season 2. Anyway, that's just a complaint I wanted to lodge about that one. So I'm sure you guys will probably talk about it, or at least I hope they'll talk about it. I can't believe they gave her a broken leg. I don't understand how she's going to survive the infection, and how she's going to hobble all the way over to Colorado from here. So something clever is going to have to happen next week for me to maintain any believability on that storyline. But I'm eager to see what Aaron's role was in everything. So anyway, hopefully y'all are doing well. This is Yoga Bond. Peace out.
I don't know if she'll survive either. I think probably at first she was afraid, probably petrified.
Yeah.
And she thought, there's nothing that she could ever live without Aaron by her side, but probably spent so many nights thinking of... All right. You're not following me there.
No, I'm not.
That's 2 weeks in a row that song lyrics have just...
fallen on deaf ears, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, some people will get that terrible song reference. All right. What do you think about Yoga Bond's feedback?
I agree with her. Let's see. I don't know where I disagree with her. So I'm going to start with shooting through the door. And
yes.
I had the exact same reaction. It's not something we brought up in our regular podcast because honestly, there was so much good we were talking about. I didn't even think about this. But yeah, she fires 4 rounds through the door, wastes all of her ammo.
Yeah.
And they don't shoot back. One thing that I think we can learn from this, again, in gun safety, I think people need to understand, cars are not cover. They're concealment. Bullets go through vehicles. So why didn't they just go up to the side and, like she said, strafe the van?
Yep.
I completely agree. The only thing I can think is they wanted to conserve ammo and die.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, that's as big of a gripe, but that one didn't occur to me as I watched the episode. What did occur to me was, Rachel, you have a revolver. You have limited ammo. Why are you firing it at nothing?
Right.
Let them open the door, get visual contact with them, then fire at them.
And exactly.
Which
she could have covered herself up in a blanket.
Something.
Yeah. Been a little hidden.
Yep.
And, yeah.
And Yoga Bomb brought up both points, and I think they're legitimate, flaws, or whatever you want, however you want to term it.
Mm-hmm. At the same time, I mean, yeah, and they even opened the door and didn't just plug her. It's a little callous, but I mean, they're in there or something's in there shooting at you. Open the door and then shoot.
Right.
Don't.
Now, where did Aaron come from? I mean, they had to have had some sort of plan here where he was going to hide and wait.
I thought he had left her.
Did you?
Yeah, and then he, at least she thought he had left her, and then he was maybe waiting outside to ambush them. I don't think she was privy to his idea or his plan.
Oh, you don't? Mm-mm. Okay. Well, and you could be right. Now, he came in and stabbed one of the guys. Mm-hmm. Again, Aaron's growing up a little bit more each week. And I hate to say growing up, but you know what I mean. Like, he's toughening up is probably a better word for it. She still had to save him, though, right? With the broken leg, she still had to come to his rescue. He was going to die 2 weeks in a row if she hadn't been there to save him. Yeah.
Well, and definitely. So I'm going to move on from that to back to the broken leg. She asked if it's survivable. And one thing that we might see is maybe she has a little device in her that heals wounds. Who knows? So the nanites will heal her leg.
Or maybe if he can get her to the tower.
Yeah. He can fix it.
Even if she's on death's door, maybe it's enough to bring her back. I don't know.
So
we shall find out.
And I don't remember who's the one that was saying Aaron was a winner, then a loser.
Yes.
Is that I can't remember who gave us that last week and the week before. Was it Barb? Or
it might have been Barb.
Okay. Well, she's coming up in a couple of turns, but I'm kind of wondering, is Aaron the winner now? Because we see him gaining an important role with the tower. So
we'll find out. Yeah. That's a good point, Jeremy. All right, let's move on to Jim.
Hey, fellas. Jim in Wisconsin here with my thoughts on The Love Boat, starring Miles Matheson as the conflicted general, Tom Neville as the still evil major, Charlie Matheson as the most irritable pain in the voice of reason, and guest starring Aaron Pittman as a guy that suddenly became way more important. And after watching it a couple more times, I was able to see what the writers were trying to convey with what they showed us. We spent the last few episodes seeing how Miles is reluctantly becoming the man he used to be. I think the speech he gives at the firing squad was not only to try to get the guy to talk, but it was also to help convince himself that these tactics are justified. He even goes along with the re-kidnapping the scientist and holding his family just as Monroe did to force cooperation. Thankfully, Charlie hits him with the proverbial lunch tray and finally knocks some sense back into him. Hopefully he's thinking more clearly now, and we can move on to more important things. I was a little upset with Neville's return this week. Knowing that he was following orders while under Monroe's command, I had hoped that he would have been a little softer in his Georgian debut. But after a 2-week build-up, the change of uniform did nothing for his attitude, and it seems he's just looking for someone to blame his actions on. If he's just following orders, then it's not his fault that people have to die. It makes me think that this is what Miles was like back in the day, and that Major Tom still has a season or two to realize the error of his ways. It's going to be a long and winding road to redemption if that's the case, but I look forward to it as I love to hate this character. For me, though, the interesting part of the show belonged to Rachel and Aaron. Now, personally, I thought we could have used the not going to leave Rachel footage in place of the Priscilla footage in the last episode to show how Aaron has grown. It was basically the same scene, except with guns. But all that aside, I can't wait to see what Aaron did at MIT to get put into Dr. Warren's Nanite Handbook. Once again, Rachel kept Aaron in the dark about page 74, and it was only when she was faced with dying and sending him off alone that she was willing to share something. Obviously, there's an interesting story there, and thankfully the book is in the hands of the character that tells us the most. Here's hoping for big news next week. Finally, I wanted to touch on the scene at the tower. Grace gets the elevator working, and that means that Randall's henchman can finally put down that Maxim magazine and go exploring. Of course, he gets attacked by something at level 7, and we're left to wonder as to what was in the elevator when the bloody doors opened. Grace is horrified, and I'm curious if something was coming out or if it was just what was left of the body that scared her. Putting together the newspaper clipping about Aaron's artificial intelligence software with the elevator attack, I think my Twitter poll response from a few weeks back has some merit. Could it be that some of the nanites did indeed become self-aware and needed to be contained on level 12? Something intelligent killed that guy, and I'm guessing it has to do with smart nanites. Maybe that could be part of why the blackout happened. It was triggered to keep them from taking over the planet. All we have to do now is figure out how to time travel back to stop Aaron from completing his work, and the world won't have to be plunged into darkness. Okay, that might be a little far-fetched, but I had to find a way to get time travel in there for Jeremy's sake. Well, that's all for this week. From the corner of Shut Up and Stay Here, Jim in Wisconsin.
Jim, there's no need to feed
The monster.
That's right, Jeremy's time travel monster.
I have to say that Jim is like solid with all of his predictions. I'm enjoying him agreeing with me on a lot of things.
You and Jim should never be allowed.
We need to do a podcast together.
I was going to say in the same room together, but there are ways you can still encourage each other via the internet. Okay, a lot of good stuff as always from Jim. Where do we start with this, Jeremy?
Well, I think we could start with Rachel and Aaron, but he mentioned he thought that he would rather have seen this last week instead of this week.
I
thought that was the point. Really? Okay,
Yeah.
tell me.
Well, only because Priscilla is now married with a child, with a family, and so I feel better. Look, Aaron blew his chance with her when he abandoned her. So that's the way it goes. You made a decision. She now has another family. To me, it's more important for her to get back to that family than for him to stick around and say, I'm not leaving until you and I go together.
Yeah.
I would not have been satisfied with that because now you're depriving her from her actual family.
Yeah.
So I am happier with the way it was handled this week than if they done that last week.
I like what you have to say there. I think it shows us his progression, even though it's taking a little bit longer. But I did like the scene with Rachel and Aaron, and I did like Aaron kind of growing up here. But there was one scene we haven't talked about where she's kind of telling him all the things to get him to go away.
Yes.
And she makes the comment, you left your wife.
Yeah.
Why can't you leave me?
Right.
And I thought that was to the core. And I think that would have meant more had this been last week and he hadn't resolved his issues with Priscilla yet.
Yes, but at the same time, she's trying to pull out every insult, every motivation that she can in order to get him to go onto the tower and not be held back by her, which in a lot of ways was one of the more selfless things that we've seen Rachel do.
Yeah.
Now, was there some truth in that? Yes, but I don't think with that one she really feels that way. I think she was really trying to motivate him emotionally.
Okay.
All right, what else?
Well, he doesn't seem to trust Rachel, which I think we're right there.
I still don't. Although I will say that after this week, I do trust her a little bit more.
Yeah,
but I still don't.
But like he said, she only revealed this information when she's on death's door, or when she believes she's on death's door. Right. So it's not something out of the goodness of her heart.
Nope.
It's something out of her motive.
Right.
She has a motive for whatever, and it's driving this. It's not love. It's not kindness. It's just whatever is driving her.
Right.
So,
right.
I still don't think I'm trusting Rachel. In fact, I'm still hoping she's Vader, but who knows? So.
She could be. I don't think that's out of the question yet.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to cover with him? He had so many good things there. Those were the things I wrote down.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on then. Jim, thank you so much for your feedback. Let's move on to Barb.
Hello, Daryl and Jeremy. This is Barb from Phoenix, a.k.a. Tangier14, calling in with feedback for The Love Boat. Wow, another amazing epi from the Revolution writers. They really gave us a great story with twists and turns and plenty of laugh-out-loud quotes of the week. Have a hard time choosing one. I thought that one of the messages of this episode dwelled around hope and how it's never too late to do the right thing. What I really liked was Charlie, Jason, and Nora working together to free the kidnapped scientist and reunite him with his family. Particularly Jason. All Jason has known in his childhood is war, and his father's mistaken example of leadership. And I think the writers are showing us that there is still hope in this post-blackout world, particularly with a generation that may not know what peace means. I also enjoyed watching Miles finally join them and probably spend some time contemplating his past and opening up old wounds and feelings that he will need to confront in order to forgive himself and move forward. It was fun to see new aspects of the Plains Nation this week. Along the main river where trading can flourish, the Plains Nation seems a bit more backcountry yet civilized, but once Rachel and Aaron were deep into Kansas, a clear Wild Wild West mentality prevailed, and once again Aaron tried, but had to be saved by a woman. Well, perhaps by the end of the series. I can't wait to see what happens with Aaron and which of his creations is helping to fuel the machine nanobots. I need to rewatch the epi where he and Rachel set out to see if she asked him to come and possibly knew about his contribution, or if she just learned about it in Dr. James' book. By the way, did you notice the scientist and his family were going to flee to Texas, much as Priscilla and her family had done? There must be something good about, oh God, Texas? Hope we get to see more of that part of the country soon. Thanks for all you guys do. This is Barb signing out from the Great Wasteland, where it doesn't pay to mess with us.
The only good thing about the Texas Nation is Oklahoma, is its crown.
I concur.
All right.
The crown of Texas. Yes. I like it. I like it, Jeremy.
All right.
You just warmed me up to Texas a little bit.
I'm sorry.
All right. So she says the message, and she gave us a really good insight last week on maybe what the message of the series was.
Mm-hmm.
The message maybe of this episode is that it's never too late to do the right thing. A message of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was definitely the message with Miles.
Yeah. We see his inner conflict and then him coming around in the end, even though he did have to get locked up for it. So.
Yeah. I think... I'm struggling how to word this. You know, Tom continues to make poor decisions, but he didn't really have somebody really trying to reason with him the way Charlie did with Miles. Jason just says, I hate you. And
yeah,
you could still look at why they've made the choices they have, each of them, Tom to look at Jason and say, why has he made these choices? Maybe I should make these choices too. But it wasn't nearly as emotional as Charlie's pleading with Miles to kind of snap out of it a little bit. So there still might be hope for Tom. I hope that's not for a while yet, because I really like the dynamic that we're getting with him being the man we all love to hate.
Mm-hmm. She mentions Rachel asking Aaron to come to join her and with her trip. I don't think it was her asking. Do you remember that scene?
I'm thinking he invited himself along because he felt like this was the place he needed to be.
Yeah, so I thought somebody needed to go with her.
Yeah.
And Aaron was like, somebody needs to go with you. I'm going. But I'd like to look at that and double check to see exactly how that went down. The one thing, she did ask, did Rachel know? Well, that actually brings me to the obvious question that we've not brought up yet. Did Ben know? And I think he did.
I think he did too.
Because there's a reason Aaron was in that group. There's a reason I think Ben helped take care of him, and there's a reason he trusted him with the pendant.
That's it right there. I think you're right. And I think because he knew, Rachel also knew.
Yeah. So she knew before she even read it. That's interesting. I like that.
I like it too. I think that's true. Good stuff, Barb. Thank you so much for calling in your thoughts and sharing them with us. We appreciate it. Let's move on to the land down under and our friend Corey.
Hey Daryl, Jeremy, Corey from Australia. So, after last week's disappointing episode, I only had one question this week. Was Revolution going to go back to being the general of my nuts? Nope. This episode was great. Whatever it lacked last week, it made up for in spades this week. It was really worth its weight in diamonds. Starting with the return of Giancarlo Esposito. I love to hate Tom. It certainly is a bit of a give me to have him as the Georgian general. in working with Miles, since, as we saw last week, Miles isn't shy about blowing away people of authority. So why he didn't just shoot Tom in the face is something I'm willing to let slide. As I said in my feedback from last week, I was disappointed that we didn't get any internal conflict with Miles. So, better late than never. I'm also happy that Charlie took a pivotal role in helping him realize that he didn't have to be that person anymore, and that he didn't have to stoop to Monroe's level. And this was even better because, the last maybe few weeks have been a little Charlie light. And this has also been the same of Nora, who I think we got to see a bit more of than ever tonight. Just saying. Moving on to Rachel and Aaron, and a bit more of the Plains Nations. And just like when we went to Georgia, we get to see a stark contrast to life there. This has continued to open the world up and provide a deeper understanding of what the characters are dealing with. The first thing I wanted to say about Rachel is that as soon as she fell over, I immediately thought, like daughter, like mother. But Rachel doesn't spring back so well. The next thing I notice is that she refers to the notes as a sort of spell book, and then she gives it to Aaron, and he finds an article inside about himself. I may be mistaken, but I think it was in an early episode when we had his flashback that they established that he had the nickname the Wizard of Google. So I thought that was a cool little parallel that the wizard would get the spell book. And lastly, the cliffhanger. And great to have Maria Howe back as Grace. I am dying to find out what the hell that was all about. Smoke monster? Polar bear? It's definitely giving me a bit of a Lost vibe, and you can't tell me that this level 12 isn't the hatch of the series. This gives me hope for time travel, Jeremy. I'm totally on board with that theory. I give this episode an 8.5 manual centrifuges out of 10. Cheers, guys.
All right.
Boom. Headshot.
Thank you, Corey. You, once again, have made me laugh quite
Always.
a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to start with his comments about time travel while it's fresh on the mind? Anything to say to that?
No. I think it's self-explanatory, and I think I'm glad to have somebody else on board with this soul train.
Yeah. I'll agree, Corey, that it seems like well, I don't know that I guess you could say level 12 is the hatch, because we got it alluded to earlier, quite a bit earlier in the season. We got the tower in the first half of the season, but they didn't really keep showing it like Lost did every week. It's Boone and Locke, digging out the hatch and keeping it a secret and all this other stuff they did on Lost, and then finally get it open on the season 1 finale. Which that may still be the case, right? We may not get to see inside of it until then, but it is very reminiscent of it. We'll see when we get to our Twitter poll. I think you're not the only one that's going to make some Lost analogies to what we saw this week.
Yeah. Wizard and the Wizard of Google and Spellbook. I liked how I picked up on that.
That was good.
So I do like that we've seen that, and I think that this book is for Aaron. I think that, and I hope that Jim is right about this. Aaron tells us the most, and I'm glad he's got this book, but at the same time, I think he's the one who's going to be very pivotal to everything else.
Yeah, so. I didn't comment on this earlier in our episode because I didn't want to steal Corey's thunder. I did refer to Aaron as the wizard on purpose. I had forgotten about that until I heard Corey's feedback, and I wanted to kind of remind everybody that he was called the Wizard of Google as we were kind of warming up for this episode. But let's talk about this quote-unquote spell book. If you remember Aaron's footnotes from 2 weeks ago,
right,
when he first learned of the nanites being what is healing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It may have been 3 weeks ago, but whenever it was. His footnotes were talking about how this could totally change the world. It could heal disease. It could give them the
Mhm.
ability to breathe underwater and all these other things.
Right.
If this is a quote-unquote spell book, then really it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a recipe book for the nanites and what you can do with them. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you could create different customized nanites for different applications.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron being the wizard of it all.
Yeah.
It's cool. And it seems appropriate, too, that the guy wearing glasses would be the wizard, right?
Of course. Does he have a scar?
I don't ask me anything more than that. All I know
Just the guy in
is Harry
glasses.
Potter wears glasses. That's all I know.
He gets contacts in book 2.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
Spoiler alert. So this, you know what? Tangier just said mentions Hurley. And I don't know. To me, this propels him
Beyond.
He went from irrelevant, hey, he's the everyman, he's the
Right.
the humor of the episode
To
or
the
the
savior.
show, to and Hurley, obviously, spoiler alert, Hurley ends up in charge of the island at some point. Man, this is a huge deal for Aaron.
Yeah.
Made him a whole lot more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So
And he's going to die next week.
I would be mad.
No.
I would be mad. All right, anything else on Corey's thoughts?
Nope.
All right, thank you, Corey. Let's move on to Comey.
Hey guys, this is Comey from Savannah, Georgia, calling about Revolution. Really liked the most recent episode. I give it an 8.0 out of 10. I liked it better than last week. I thought it was good to have a very strong, unique plot line for a standalone episode. This is a very strong episode. To have an episode that's a standalone that does not deal with some sort of character popping out of some Miles' past is just a very strong storyline, independent storyline. I like that a lot. It really reminded me of episodes of Firefly, especially Ariel or The Train Job. An episode like that, I thought it was cool. And I liked the way it was done. The only downside that I had with this episode is just a problem I have with the show in general is a lot of the things that they do is telegraphed. You can see where things are going and how it's going to develop as the show progresses, and you can usually tell what's going to happen 40 minutes down the road, and you could tell that Charlie was going to betray everyone and try to free the doctor. You knew that the guy who boarded their ship, the militiaman who boarded their ship, was going to attack them towards the end, and that was going to be the big action sequence. But either way, I still liked the episode. And it was also nice to see that Miles did not make the same mistake that he made before with the militia.
That's it. It sounded like he got cut off there.
Yeah.
I don't know where he was going with that, but he definitely got cut off in mid-sentence. All right, so based on what he did give us there, what do you think?
I agree. They do telegraph quite a bit, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it is a TV show, so they tend to telegraph a lot in TV. So, kind of like the Thunder playing basketball. Yeah.
What? I'm not watching
I see
the Thunder
what's
game.
on your screen. You're not even listening.
I have this show notes pulled. I am listening.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what?
Alt-tab.
Comey, they did telegraph a whole lot in this episode. I do agree with you. It is one of the TV things. It would have been nice, like when the captain or officer
Mm-hmm.
looks back and you know that he notices Miles. It would have been nice if they didn't have that, but later on we get back and
Right.
we learn then that he saw Miles, recognized Miles, and because I mean Comey's right. As soon as we saw that just a little head nod,
Right.
you knew exactly what was going to happen then at some point in
Mhm.
the episode.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah.
He also mentioned that there was no floozy from Miles' past coming back to haunt him. I like that too.
Yes,
We don't have some scorned lover.
that's right.
+1 for an episode without scorned lovers.
I agree. And he talked about, him making the decision not to make the same mistakes that he had made in the past.
Right.
Another good move, I thought.
Yeah.
Look, this episode is getting high marks all across the board. I mean, even who was it? Yogabon, I think, had a couple of complaints about it. But even then, it wasn't like terrible.
Right.
She was talking about the one scene with Rachel and Aaron,
Right.
where they could have done that a little bit differently. High marks across the board. Good action, good humor, good writing, even the non-humor writing.
Yeah.
Good character development, good reveals, big cliffhanger. I mean, all the stuff we look for in a nice hour of television, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yep. All right. Kome, thank you so much. Let's move on. We have 2 left, and this one comes from Matthew.
Well, that was just a fantastic episode now, wasn't it? Seriously, the trend we've been seeing since the return has been impressive. The show just keeps getting better and better, and I'm finding myself much more intrigued and excited about the show than I ever was before. This episode did feel a bit harsh in the violence and injuries and whatnot, but I kind of think that was mainly to show us just how far into it all Miles had gone. It causes Nora and Charlie's reactions to make much more sense to us, the audience, and it builds a contrast between the kind of man he should be and what he's become. It's great to see Jason standing up to his father more and more, and it is definitely a good thing to bring Aaron deeper into the mythology, giving him a much greater purpose. As for the attack in the elevator, while our thoughts go quickly to a monster or a demon or something big like that, I have to think that maybe it was a massive swarm of nanites that offed that guy. I hope they don't make us wait too long to find out. Well, those are my thoughts for now. Odd as always, the one, the only, the Unibeefer.
All right. Thanks, Beefy. What do you think about Beefy's comments?
Well, I definitely like that we have another person agreeing with the nanites.
Yes.
In a swarm. So that's definitely something that I'm behind, obviously. One thing about the idea of a swarm that I disagree with as much as, which I think we might see a swarm, but one thing that I want to say, the elevator goes back up, which indicates something had to press ground floor.
Yep.
Which to me has to be something sentient, something capable of pressing a button.
Sentient, that was the word I was looking for earlier when I said self-aware.
Okay.
Sentient just sounds cooler.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. That's a good point about that. I didn't really think about that, having to physically touch a button. Although, if the nanites are self-aware and they are electrical, they could just control the electrical panel.
Which would make
elevator.
sense, and that's why a swarm wouldn't necessarily bother me.
Yeah.
But
he also said that he's becoming more intrigued in the show as the weeks tick by, and he's more intrigued than ever before. And I completely agree. I mean, even when we have the episodes like last week that we were like, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't great. I'm still more intrigued and more into this show. It's getting better as a whole story. Every show is going to have episodes that are better or worse, or that you personally like better or worse than other people. Although it seems like last week's was one that most everyone said, yeah, this is good, but not great. But man, this show is getting better all the time as they're revealing more and more to this story. It took a lot of criticism early on about them not really having a good story here. It's not realistic. It's not thought through or whatever. I disagree. Yeah. It's really, really good. Every week it's getting better. All right, Matthew, thanks for calling in. Nice to know you actually are human. At least you sounded human. Well, you never know. These people come into the chat room and,
just a chat bot.
They could be a chat bot. They could be a cluster of nanites.
Well, you still don't know he's not a cluster of nanites.
I suppose that's true.
We're going to need a picture.
I've actually had pizza with Matthew before.
Oh, okay.
So
he eats food.
He eats food.
All right, that's a plus in his department.
Right. All right, thanks, Matthew. Let's move on to the final feedbacker of tonight. It's Mark.
Hey there, revolutionaries. Mark from Ontario, Canada here. Here are my random thoughts regarding The Love Boat. Where last week's episode dipped in my view, this week's did a 180 and kicked it up a couple of notches. I really enjoyed the cinematography. Whoever is in charge of finding filming locations for this series is doing an excellent job. It was nice to see Tom again this week, back to his usual arrogant self. As Jason said, as long as Tom has someone to boss around, he's happy. Speaking of Jason, Tom sure did put him in his place regarding why he and Julia had to leave the Monroe Republic. The thought of Monroe having weaponized anthrax is a scary one. First a nuke, now this. What else might he have up his sleeve? Zach did an excellent job this week, playing Aaron. The look on his face when he saw Rachel's broken leg was priceless. But obviously, Aaron doesn't know Rachel as well as we do. Of course she would leave him behind. She left her kids after all. Twice. If the shoe was on the other foot, Aaron would be a goner. He got into the action again this week, even got to stab someone. Needless to say, this little adventure sure is changing Aaron. I'm really looking forward to see what other transformations he goes through, once he reaches the tower and discovers why he's in Jane's book. The tension between Randall and Monroe is growing each time we see them. It's not healthy to have those two together, each thinking they're controlling the other one. It's just a matter of time before one of them snaps. Poor Doctor, being dropped down the laundry chute like that? Sure, he was unconscious, but he must have been really sore when he woke up. Try to tell me that wasn't a daddy to the rescue moment the Miles had after Tom struck Charlie. I predict Charlie's lineage will be revealed before the end of the season. And why was Tom standing on the deck when the boat first passed the Monroe guard post? Wasn't he worried he might be identified? I found it strange that the people on the boat carrying the Doctor's family called the other boat Major Neville's boat. Being in the Navy, wouldn't they refer to it as Captain Lucas's boat? We saw a transformation in Miles this week. At the beginning of the episode, he looked dejected and worn. He was still grieving over Emma, and he just didn't look like his heart was into the whole rebel thing anymore, especially after having to execute someone he had trained. But at the end of the episode, after rescuing the Doctor and his family, we got to see the same cocky Miles we knew from the start of the season, and it was quite refreshing. Did anyone else notice the blankets in the truck where Aaron and Rachel were hiding? In 15 years, nobody ever thought to open it up and see if there was anything useful inside? Oh well, that's it for me. Until next time, keep your candles burning. This is Mark from Ontario, Canada.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Good to hear from you again. Where do we start with? He always packs so much into his feedback. I don't ever know where to start. He did talk about the cinematography in this episode, and I had the thought too when they were going across the Plains Nations. I actually didn't have the thought until this afternoon. I was kind of just wasn't. I'd already watched the episode again and was just kind of mulling it over. They filmed this thing in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I've never been to North Carolina, but you have what's been the Plains Nation, the Georgia Federation, the different obviously the Monroe area too. They've been able to find nice shooting locations. We live in the plains, and I felt like when they showed those big wide shots of them going into the township, it really did look like something that you would see around here. So they have done a really good job of finding different shooting locations there.
That's true. I hadn't even given that a thought.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. He talks about what's next after the nuke and the anthrax. We've briefly talked about that. I can't think of anything.
I wouldn't have come up with anthrax. I would have thought nuke was the worst thing. And who knows, man? This guy is. He may not get another chance. I mean, Randall may say enough with this guy.
Right. I'm gonna melt you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
The best thing that I think he has to say is something again we've not brought up, but Rachel would have left Aaron.
Definitely.
And I totally agree with that.
I do too.
He mentions she left her kids. She left her husband.
Yep.
Who do you think you are? I mean, that she's not going to leave you. The only reason she wouldn't leave him now is because of his role with the nanites. So.
Yeah, she really can't leave him now.
Well, she can't now, but I mean, before she got injured.
I don't even mean that. I mean, now that she has told him what.
Right.
She knows, or what, at least a little bit, now that he knows he actually is involved with this, even if she had a healthy pair of legs, I don't think she could justify leaving him now.
Right.
But he's absolutely right. She would leave him in a second.
The tension between Randall and Monroe, we've hit on that a bit, but I'd like to bring this up again. I mean, we know something's going to happen between the two of them, and it's just a matter of time, and I'm getting really excited to see who bites the bullet or gets melted. So, anything else that you wanted to add to this?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, I think next is our Twitter poll, isn't it?
It sure is.
And your button didn't work.
My button didn't work. What's up with that? I don't know.
Okay.
I'm wondering if I accidentally deleted it because I don't see it in the queue. There it is. Let's try it again. It's not working. It actually did play, and I can't hear it. That's odd. Hey, we're going to pretend like you just heard the Twitter poll music. I'll put it in post-production.
All right.
All right, let's get the Twitter poll going for this week. The question was, as I've already, said, what in the world is the monster at the tower? Got a lot of responses this week, so let's get it started. This first one comes in from Keegsta, and Keegsta says, I'm hoping a giant smoke monster. Zort70 said, could be a cloud of intelligent nanites hell-bent on world domination. Colorado Geiger says, it's the nanobots with a mind of their own. Orion321 says, the monster in the tower is just a polar bear, silly. Jim in Wisconsin says, I'll stick with my answer from the April 9th Twitter poll. There's a batch of self-aware nanites, and they are not happy. Patty B. Wright says, nanites, or a smoke monster. It's basically a security system. I love it. Test315 says, nanites gone wild. Seriously. Not sure, but certainly scary. Yogabon says, it's a firewall with nanites, only it destroys and rewrites cells of organic matter. Jane's book tells how to break through. I like that. HeTricks211 says, Jeremy, time travel machine? Terminator? But I actually think it is some kind of robot. The Unibeefer says, to negate my feedback, I am going to say it's probably Grendel. Take away my man card. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Or my nerd card. Huh?
Beowulf?
Beowulf? Oh, I don't know. Gosh, I haven't read Beowulf in 20 years. The next one comes in from Fool Me Once. She says, it's a Balrog. Gandalf should be by here shortly. That one I do get. And then the Unibeefer responds again and says, fine. Emily says it's a Balrog and that Gandalf should be along shortly. So he's going with that, I guess. Let's see. Blue Achius says nanites or smoke monster. It's basically a security system.
Did we not already read that?
Did I?
Yeah.
You know what? Yes, I did it again. They were retweeting Patty.
Okay.
Be right. Yep. Sorry about that. Toa of Pi says it's the security system of the tower, the smoke monster from Lost. Marksman Design says first generation nanites, programmed to absorb all electricity, even from the human body. I like that. Princess T. Taylor says, not a smoke monster, right? But maybe a guy that's been stuck pushing a button this whole time, or just got stuck there 15 years ago. I love all these Lost references. Lynn 14295582 says, I think the nanites in the tower are programmed to attack people who try to access certain levels. Todd says, I think the tower is a place of top secret scientific experiments, and the monster could be one of those. A fringe-like hybrid. Gibbinator says, no monster. He just didn't have a blinking capsule to keep the nanites from blowing him up from the inside out. I like it. Weezery says, it's the replicators from Stargate. Melchizedek says, Mole Rat Boy. Lou Ferrigno says, Bizarro nanites. Kome says, the Man in Black. Is Revolution getting lost? Zeppelin Driver says, down on level 7 is a colleague of Grace's who will save her. Survived in those inaccessible levels, angry at Randall. I Am a TV says, the monster is called Google. Only Aaron can tame it. Alternicat says, starving, flesh-eating Morlocks from the future. Nice. And finally, the last one comes in from Mickey Thomas 1, and Mickey says, Queen Nanite spawning more nanites. Good stuff tonight with the Twitter poll question. So, Jeremy, you kind of gave some of your response earlier. Do you have anything to add to that?
The theory about the blue little blinky light device, I think that's kind of an interesting thought, that level is only accessible if you have that device. But who knows?
You know what? I think that is an interesting theory as well. I think it's possible, but that would mean, I'm going to assume that would mean that Randall would have a device inside of him, which that certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility. I don't know. Perhaps. I'm kind of thinking it is a monster of some sort. It is a physical being, not a cluster of nanites, although I do like that theory. I'm just going to, I have to go with one, I think. So
yeah.
I'm going to go, it's, and I like the theory that someone said that it was first generation, like something that had been experimented on.
Right.
And it's out of control. I like that too. Grace was terrified. She physically saw something and it physically scared her. So I don't...
Well, there's a dead body on the elevator that just got ripped up. So that's enough to scare somebody.
Yeah. That's true. She could be reacting. And that, what was it, Mark that mentioned that in his feedback?
Think, yeah.
That she could have also been reacting to what she saw, the remains, and not just a monster. And that hadn't occurred to me until he said that. So that's actually quite a good point. But I'm going to stick with it's a physical being, and I don't know how she's going to get out of those handcuffs in time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Which is enough to make me go, it's not a physical being.
Yeah. And I don't think they're going to kill her either, so I don't know. I can't wait to see how this is resolved. Yep. I got nothing. I figured out why the music didn't play. The music, the volume of that particular sound bit got turned all the way down.
Interesting.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody who sent in responses to the Twitter question this week. You can do that by following us on Twitter, which is GSM Podcasts. We send out the question every Tuesday, late morning, early afternoon, and then you can respond using the hashtag RevTwit, and that way it'll get spotted by us, and we'll get it all organized that way and make sure you get read on the podcast. So follow us over there at GSM Podcasts. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Golden Spiral Media. You want to give out our feedback stuff?
Okay.
I hate taking it all every week. I'm trying to give you an opportunity here to get involved.
Doesn't bother me if you take it all. So I'm just used to it. But you can submit your theories and feedback to us via phone at 837-304-2278. No? That's the number you have in there.
I thought I had corrected all these. It's 304.
304. This is why you do it. 304-837-2278. Okay. Or go to feedback. Email us at feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com. And again, the deadline for submitting feedback is 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, each Tuesday.
That's right. Well, thanks to everybody who sent in feedback for this week's podcast. I want to remind you, we don't do this all the time, but we would invite you to go over to iTunes and submit a rating or a review. We want to give a shout out to New to Fringe, who gave us a great review, not just a rating, but actually submitted a review this week, and we certainly appreciate that very much. Again, this is a listener-supported podcast. Go over to goldenspiralmedia.com/support, where you can make a donation or click on any of our affiliate links, and we would certainly appreciate it. And until next time, I want to remind everybody that, Jeremy, I am smarter than you.
And I hate you.